Ricardo Pierre Lewis is the founder and CEO of Privé Parking. He's also the treasurer of the United Neighbors of Lower Roxbury. Rose Therum is owner and founder of Rosemark Production in Dorchester, one of the largest vendors at the NAACP Convention. Welcome back. Great to see you both. Thanks for doing it.
So
I'm going to ask you some summary questions because Marjorie missed this. Rose has done events in Israel for thousands of people. Rose has worked with inaugural committees for presidents of the United States. Rose Therum, prior to these contracts, how many contracts do you ever have in Boston before?
One.
One, an itty-bitty one from what I understand.
64 events and less than 300K to do it. So, yeah, pretty small.
And how many years your business existed?
I'm sorry, how many years?
How many years your business existed?
We're a business 5, me in this position 15.
Fair enough.
And Rose from Mattapan. So, I mean, local woman here having to go all over the country for work.
And can I just bring them up to date on Ricardo because you weren't here
I
yet?
saw Ricardo's very handsome picture in the paper.
Well, I wanted to tell
was very
that
happy
story.
that he was coming in.
Are you flirting with me online?
Trying.
Maybe she is. So, Ricardo, you've had this valet business thing, but your approach, I spoke to him about it last night, the head of economic development for the city, Shigoni Dowo, and asked you if you can deal with the transportation for 7,000 to 10,000 conventioners. And you didn't have the capacity, but what did you do?
I had to think outside the box. Obviously, it was a perfect opportunity for us to get some exposure and show that we're capable of doing this. So what I did was I said, hey, listen, we may not have the capacity, but we have the network and the relationships and the partners. And so I went out, contracted a motor bus company, and it was a great partnership. It made sense, and we came in and put together a competitive proposal and won.
And now you can do that.
And now we
not
can do
just
that.
here, but next week and the week after.
Oh yeah, that's the goal.
So I wasn't there when you spoke before, but this has always amazed me. The excuse always is, well, you know, there are no companies, black-owned companies or women-owned companies. Obviously there are. So what did you think during this time that you were gallivanting around the world but not getting the business here? What do you think?
I was sad. I told Jim that I thought about moving many times with my family bases here. I think that's the excuse, is that minority-owned businesses don't have the capacity, we don't have the money, we don't have the foundation, yet my company did, and we still didn't get the contracts. And even today, we're at the convention center, we are a preferred vendor, and we've gotten 0 contracts until the NAACP has come into town. So it's pretty sad.
So is it just plain old racism? I mean, what is it about?
I think it's just a way of doing business. I think it's legacy contracts. I think you get used to using the same person, and there's not a lot of businesses that I think have come into a space that they're ready to take on this type of events, but we are, and that would mean doing something different. And so I think people are just used to using the same good old boys, you know?
Is it racism there, Ricardo?
It's a tough question to answer. I think, like I said in our last interview, everyone has their own experience on contracting with the city of Boston and getting contracts in the private sector here in Boston. When you ask me that question, I kind of really think about it, and what I would say is I think there is discomfort when it comes to working with black businesses here in Boston. There is not a long history or a pattern on what that looks like or a model to follow. And so when we're trying to open doors and come into these certain industries, it's very difficult. You know, if people are used to doing and conducting business a certain way, and a new person or a new company like myself comes to the picture, it's how do I work with you? How do we make it work, right? Because it has to make sense. At the end of the day, we're all in business to provide a good service and to make money, but how do you do that when you're bringing in or working with a local black business?
Well, it's also, it's all about networking. You mentioned the Old Boys Club. I mean, the hope, I guess, is there become a new Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
I mean, that is what the game plan is. Is it not, Rose?
Oh, yeah, and I love that you say that, because now that I'm a decision maker, I am bringing in the women and I am bringing in the people of color, because at the top, it matters. And so those decisions that are being made at the top, they don't look like me. But now I am actually at the top, and I can make some changes, you know?
Well, you know, we were just talking to Colette Phillips, of course, is run a communications business, very successful one for years in Boston. I asked her about the difference in terms of not only that Michelle Wu is a woman of color, but her administration is very young, and that it's a totally different attitude, I think, when you're 30 or 35 than when you're 60, right? Yeah. How do you see the youth of this administration impacting business here?
I mean, look where I'm at today. Right?
Yeah.
I'm 34 years old. I'm here. I'm telling you about how we just was awarded one of the biggest contracts at the NAACP. My team is all people of color from Boston. It's a new day, and this is an example of we're here and we're really doing it. And one thing I do want to stress is we just don't want to be a one-time vendor. Right. And I want to echo that and make sure everyone can hear me that's watching, and this is repeated to other people. We want to continue working with the Convention Center and other agencies out there to show that, listen, we can do this. Yeah. And we're doing a pretty great job.
Amen.
By the way, I want to say now, not only do we have you back 2 times in a week, let's make sure you come back in a couple of months and tell us, after the NAACP has left town, what does flow from the experience here? I wasn't going to ask you to tell the story again. It's the most beautiful story I've actually heard the whole week, but I wasn't going to mention it until Margie started flirting with you a couple of weeks ago. Can you tell the story about, where'd you go, to some diner or something?
Mike City Diner.
After, was it Shirley Leung's
Mike
story?
City Diner. It's a great place.
Okay, by the way, we should give credit to Shirley Leung from the Globe.
Yeah.
She wrote the story that got us in touch with Ricardo and Rose. But tell the story, Ricardo, if you can.
Yeah. There's a diner that I tend to eat at 3 to 4 times a week. There's a woman there. She's in her 80s, born and raised in Roxbury. And we talk quite often, and she knows about how I'm trying to grow my business. And it's funny because we're always having conversations, and she's always talking about, well, in the South End, we used to have trains above ground. And I was like, well, that doesn't exist anymore. That's way before my time. So, but we joke. And this week, Tuesday, I walk into the diner, and I know exactly what time she gets there because we usually go get in at the same time. And I walk in, and she just looks at me with this dumbfound look. And I'm looking back at her. I'm like, hey, you okay? Something going on? Like, what happened? And she starts clapping. And I'm like, why are you clapping? Stop. Like, why are you clapping? What's going on? And she goes, I saw you on the front page of the Boston Globe.
Oh, God.
And she goes, not only were you on the front page of the Boston Globe, you were above the fold. Now, my generation, we don't really read newspapers. We don't know what above the fold means or below the fold. I'm like, is that like, what does that mean? And she's like, that means you are top story. And she goes, it really makes me proud to see that Boston is on the verge of change. And this is proof right here. And I'm so proud of you, Ricardo.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, thank you. I didn't really realize how much of an impact that it had, not with just my generation, but with the older generation, right? And so I think it's just an exciting time. It's time for new faces, young talent, young black talent to really show what we're capable of doing. And we're showing that right here, right now at this convention.
That is a great story.
Isn't that great? By the way, that's the
story,
voice of Ricardo Pierre-Louis. He's the founder and CEO of Privé Parking, and he's joined by Rose Starum, who's the owner and founder of Rosemark Productions.
So in that Shirley Leung column that you mentioned, she pointed out that 90% of the businesses that are working at this convention are black-owned businesses. So how do we judge going forward if this has been the success that Michael Curry's talked about, Tanisha Sullivan's talking about? Jim mentioned having you back on in a few weeks and talking about this, but what does success look like to you?
I appreciate that question, and I had this conversation with Michael Curry this morning. This is great that the NAACP, that is about advancing people of color, has hired 90% of people of color. But what happens tomorrow?
Yeah.
Is it just when the NAACP comes in or the Urban Leagues comes in that we get opportunities, or does the Convention Center call us back? Does the Trade Center people that come in, Eastern Bank and Citizens Bank, do they give us contracts? So I think it cannot only be black events coming in and hiring black people.
Yeah.
That's where there's a wealth gap. That's where all of the problems start. So the success is going to be when we start getting contracts that we typically don't get. And that's going to be the key. Like, next week, what happens? So I appreciate you guys inviting us back so that we can hold people accountable, It's great until everybody's gone, and then it's kind of like, okay, we're back to square one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we're inviting you back because we want to attract this. We're inviting you back because we figure we'll get a free ride and a free meal. So you don't have to, but do what you think is right, you two.
Okay.
We hope
okay.
it works out great in the next couple of days. You've been terrific to give us so much time. Lots of luck, and we'll see you in a couple of months.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank
Yeah,
you both.
thank you very, very
Thank
much
you,
for
guys.
coming in, and congratulations on at least what's happening right now. We hope it continues.
Thank
We've been
you.
speaking with Rose Starum, owner and founder of Rose Mark Production in Dorchester. That's Rose Mark Production in Dorchester, and Ricardo Pierre Lewis.
No,
founder-
actually, it's Ricardo above the fold, Pierre Lewis, I
Okay,
believe is the name.
Ricardo above the fair. I think it was a peach-colored suit. What was the color of that suit? It was very nice. Founder and CEO of Privé Parking. Both are vendors at this week's NAACP Convention. Thank you again
Thanks,
for
you too.
coming in.